Welcome to the Talking Magic channel. I'm one of your hosts, Young Jin.
And I'm Trism.
And this is the second installment of the Upkeep, your, at the current moment, monthly, but perhaps in the future, not so quite monthly, Magic the Gathering podcast. Alright, well, without further ado, let's move on to the draw step. Today on the agenda, we're going to be going over Hour of Devastation and the new cards that come up. If you've been following the channel, we started reviewing the cards, starting with white, blue, and black. Today we'll be going over the rest of the color pie: red, green, gold, artifacts, and lands. So briefly going over some hand-selected cards, the best of the best, and just going over some of the most outstanding cards that we have. After that, that's going to be the main focus of today's show. After that, we're going to go just quick combat. We're going to be discussing card qualities, issues of print quality in Wizards that Wizards of the Coast has been suffering lately, and that people have been complaining about that. So we'll be having a little discussion about that. After that, we're going to be doing a quick tournament report on pre-release, going over my deck. And then at our end step, cracking open some Hour Devastation packs. So let's get into the main topic of the show today. Hour Devastation. Let's start off with gold, with Big Daddy Bolas. Alright, so Nicol Bolas God Pharaoh. He is the headliner of the set. He is 4 generic, a blue, black, red, Grixis mana for a Planeswalker, coming in with 7 loyalty, 4 abilities. You know, we don't see that often. +2, target opponent exiles cards from the top of their library until he or she exiles a non-land card. Then until end of turn, you may cast that card without paying its mana cost. A +1, each opponent exiles 2 cards from his or her hand. A -4, it deals 7 damage to target opponent or creature an opponent controls. And a -12, exile each non-land permanent your opponent control. So, obviously, 7 loyalty is gigantic. 4 abilities are sweet. Each ability is pretty strong on its own. I mean, I like the card from a Timmy perspective. It's a huge, giant planeswalker dragon with a ton of cool abilities. My biggest problem with it though is that it costs 7 mana. Oh, that's so slow.
Yeah, 7 mana slow. This card to me just screams control finisher and like a control V control V mid range matchup. You don't have any board wipes to really like regain the board against like an aggro or even like a lower end mid range deck. However, if you are able to get Nicol Bolas to resolve, his +2, assuming there's an empty board, is generally going to be a 3-for-1 against a control deck. You're going to get 2 cards out of their hand, or you can, like with the +1, or you can +2 to get another card. This guy can generate a lot of card advantage in those matchups, but I agree. I think he's a little too slow for anything other than, high-end mid-range/control matchups.
For a 7 mana walker, I mean, you really need a way to be able to, when it comes onto the battlefield, to be able to stabilize or do something when you're behind on board. But the problem with this card is that when you're behind on board, or maybe even a parity, it doesn't really do much. I mean, I haven't played much with this card. I've done a little bit of testing, but I'll probably play with a little bit more in the future. But perhaps just -4ing to nuke someone in the face for 7 might be enough. But for at the moment, its abilities right now do not help you much when you're behind. And for a 7 mana walker, that is just not good. I mean, against the mid-range matchup and against the control matchup, the +1 is actually pretty valuable. Being able to strip 2 cards from your opponent's hand every turn is gonna just give you a mountain of card advantage. So yeah, I think a one of in a sort of Grixis control list might be worth looking into. I'm certainly looking into it. But regardless, Nicol Bolas is still a pretty cool card. I'm excited for it. Not quite as powerful as I might have expected, but definitely the power level is still there. We'll still have to see where it comes up.
Yeah, it's a strong card. Like, it probably would push this card over the top, but I kind of wish its -4 was deal 7 damage to creatures, as you choose. Like, that would be interesting. Then
That
you'd be
would
able
be.
to take out more than one threat because 7 damage is going to be overkill, like 90% of the time.
Yeah, against a creature,
I
yeah.
mean,
But the fact that it can 7 damage to face is, I think it justifies. That's
that is
definitely,
strong.
yeah.
That is true. Yeah. All right, next up we have Samut the Tested. It is a 4 CMC Walker, 2 colorless, or sorry, 2 generic, 1 red, 1 green for Mythic Planeswalker, 4 loyalty. It has 3 abilities, +1, up to 1 target creature gains double strike until end of turn. -2, Sam of the Tested deals 2 damage divided as you choose among 1 or 2 target creatures and/or players. And then you can -7 to search your library for up to 2 creature and/or planeswalker cards, and then put them onto the battlefield, then shuffle your library. Well, this card is not that great. It kind of hits that odd sentiment a lot of Gruul Walkers have, in that it relies you to have like a strong creature base in order to make this effective, in that it's +1, gives a creature double strike. However, it itself is not a creature, and it cannot generate tokens, so that's really strange. Its -2 is pretty weak, getting to electrolyze. You know, it's not that good. Like, even if electrolyzing twice, that's not really something you want to put on a 4 CMC
No,
Walker. It's not great
it's
protection. If
uh,
there's a lot of X1s in the format, like a lot of 1 toughness creatures, you might be able to put it in sideboards. I could see that doing well, maybe, as a very specific hate card. However, I think its abilities are just not great enough. There's not a lot of incentive. They don't synergize very well. However, I do think this card will be really good in Commander, because if you get a doubling season out, you can play this card immediately ult, and then you can -7 to get out 2 other walkers
I
that can probably immediately ult.
I hate that argument. I hate that argument so much. So that ultimate is bananas. That is a very powerful ultimate. But I really do not want to play a walker where the other two abilities are terrible. Because if I don't have my doubling season, then this card is just straight up dead. I mean,
Now
yeah.
that's a fair argument, but like, since this is Commander,
Mhm.
you will have a ready supply of creatures. You know, you're most likely going to be able to play your Commander, like, to be able to rely on it, and then gaining advantage from double strike, being able to deal twice as much commander damage. I mean, there is a lot you can do with
Yeah,
this
there
card.
is a lot you can do, but I think comparably, when you compare this to other planeswalkers, that's so much weaker than that. Like the plus is just doesn't give you protection, doesn't do much, just gives a target double strike, isn't impactful, and then an electrolyze is just like okay, whatever. Or
That's fair enough. I mean, what does an electrolyze do in
yeah,
commander,
yeah.
anyways?
In commander, it's
Everything
almost
running
nothing.
around has um,
Exactly.
so much toughness. But I do think that if you're able to get the dream of,
The
if you have
dream.
some kind of synergy with, planeswalker counters, like either you have proliferate, or you have something where you can add additional counters, plus a doubling season. There is a lot of strong power plays you can make with Samet. I mean, Commander is a format where you can just goof off and do basically whatever. And if you get Samet, onto a resolved, um, doubling season, and are able to -7 to get 2 more planeswalkers that can ult, that sounds like a lot of fun.
It does. No, the ultimate is bananas for sure. Just the other two, but just do not. It's just so weak.
I mean, I think an argument could be made for like Xenagos, God of Revels, just because that guy pluses something by like extraordinary amounts, and then Samet will also give a double strike. So that sounds like a lot of fun
Yeah, I
as
suppose. Yeah,
well.
yeah,
Yeah,
fair.
but honestly, that's about as much as I can see it. Is that doubling season shenanigans, or in Xenagos EDH decks?
All right, moving on. We have the Scorpion God. So this is the first of the three gods that Bolas has been hiding away in his little cupboard. So this is the three generic, a black and a red for a 6/5 legendary creature god. Whenever a creature with a -1/-1 counter on it dies, draw a card. Then you can pay one generic black and a red to put a -1/-1 counter on another target creature. And whenever a Scorpion god dies, return it to its owner's hand at the beginning of the next end step. So each of the gods has that final ability. Kind of interesting callback to the indestructibility of the other gods. Kind of a twist on that, which I like a lot. So this is my least favorite of the three gods, because I think compared to the other two gods, which we'll see in just a second, quite low impact. Obviously, whenever a creature dying, you drawing a card is strong, but the -1/-1 counter strategy and theme is just non-existent. Also, it's a 5 mana essentially do nothing as soon as you play it.
Yeah, I mean, you said it right there. You play this for 5 mana. Yeah, they can kill it. It goes back to your hand, but it does nothing to turn. It comes down. And even for standard, that's a pretty slow turn 5 play to play a 6/5. While it gets you card advantage, it doesn't really do anything at the time. I mean, even if it sticks around and you get to turn 6, all you're going to be able to do, like at the most with this guy, is put 2 -1/-1 counters. However, on an even board, this guy screws up combat math like nobody's business. And for that reason, this is hella great and limited. Well, not only
Oh,
that has those strong abilities, but
you want to talk about limited? These gods are
limited is
bananas in God. You
absolutely absurd.
First pick these gods every draft you see these.
Mm-hmm.
Unbelievably strong in draft. Unbelievably strong. Yeah.
I,
Yes.
I will say though that if there is a standard where board stalls are common and like you have your mid-range v mid-range matchups, and there is some kind of Rakdos mid-range / control deck out there, this guy might see play. I'm not exactly counting on it. There's not a whole lot of strong -1/-1 counters like cards in standard anyways.
Right. Yeah.
So we'll see. But yeah, this guy probably won't see play.
I agree. Absolutely. Interesting implications for commander with these three gods with that final text that does evade commander tax if these gods were to die while they're on the battlefield and you bounce it to the hand, they'll go back to the command zone, so their commander tax doesn't go up, so you can play them again for their normal casting cost, which is incredibly powerful. I mean, even in commander though, I still think this is one of the weaker of the three gods. But well, let's talk about the other gods then. Next, we have the Locust God. So this is 4 generic, a blue and a red for a 4/4 legendary creature god with flying. Whenever you draw a card, create a 1/1 blue and red insect creature token with flying and haste. You can pay 2 generic, a blue and a red to draw a card, then discard a card. And when it dies, well, yeah, it's the same text. So I think this is ability. If you just read the text by itself, that's an incredibly powerful ability. Because basically, it's saying every single time you draw a card, when you untap and draw a card, you're gonna get a 1/1. And every turn you draw a card, you're gonna get 1/1 with haste. And then you can pay 4 to draw a card, then discard a card. That's slow. Don't get me wrong, that is a slow ability. That's still a powerful ability, though, being able to loot every turn. And you don't even have to tap the thing. So if you have a butt ton of mana, you can just constantly be looting over and over again. And then making with more 1/1 flyers.
Yeah, you're making chump blockers all over the place.
Yeah, chump blockers all over the place. I mean, but they are evasive, which is good.
Yeah, I mean, this card's interesting. 6 mana hurts it a lot, though. For the same argument about Scorpion God, it's 6 mana. The turn you play is just a 4/4 flyer. Provided you get to the next turn, you're going to get a 1/1 for free just by naturally drawing. But I don't know. Is that good enough?
No, I absolutely believe that this is far too slow for standard. If you can stick it and if you can untap with it, you are in a very good position to be winning from then on. I mean, the problem is the body is very weak. For the 4/4 body, it's gonna die to a lot of things. It's gonna die to Grass of Darkness. It dies to some newer cards like Chandra's Defeat. Hits this. I mean, yes, when it dies, it goes back to hand, but then you're gonna have to pay that huge cost again. 6 mana is no joke. It's basically time walking yourself if your opponent has a way to deal with it.
Now there is some talk going around that blue-red control may be like a strong deck option coming up, and if blue-red control is strong enough, you have your torrential gear hulks. But would you want a card like Locust God in those style of decks?
It is a powerful card, and it does fit as a finisher. The problem is you have better options. You have 4 torrential gear hooks that you're going to be running, and the deck also runs almost entirely on flash. So playing a 6 mana card at sorcerer speed is something you don't really want to be doing at all, almost ever.
Fair enough. All right, so next up is the Scarab God. It is a 5 CMC. That's 3 generic, blue-black, Dimir, legendary creature god with 5/5 power and toughness. It has, at the beginning of your upkeep, each opponent loses X life, and you scry X, where X is the number of zombies you control. For 4 mana, 2 generic, blue, black. You can exile a target creature from a graveyard, create a token that's a copy of it, except it's a 4/4 black zombie. When the Scarab God dies, return it to its owner's hand at the beginning of the next end step. Well, I mean, this is another one example. In tandem with the other gods, it is a card you play and does nothing the turn it comes down. It is not even a zombie, so it doesn't even proc its first ability. You're going to have to rely entirely of either having zombies resolved or getting its effect to go off. However, its activated ability is the strongest of the other gods. I think
Absolutely. Yeah.
Eternalize is very useful, and you don't have to eternalize just from your own graveyard. You can internalize from your opponents as well, which I think is very powerful.
I mean, there's plenty
But
of fantastic cards you're going to be wanting to hit. You can play 4 mana. You can bring back. You can get another Gearhulk trigger, Torrential Gearhulk trigger, Reverter's Gearhulk. Even I don't know, even a Noxious Gearhulk. You're running that. You can bring back a Glory Bringer. Or you can bring back even something small. I mean, the format's really aggressive. A lot of running small things running around. 4 mana, bring something small back, but now it's a 4/4. So you're getting value there.
and if you are able to use its ability on opponent's creature that has eternalized but hasn't used it yet, it's almost like a 2-for-1 because you're taking that card out of the graveyard plus you're getting it for yourself.
Right, right. Lots of benefits. You get a graveyard hate, inherent graveyard hate, and token generation, and repeatable enter the battlefield triggers, and reanimation. It's just a lot of very cool things with that ability. And
While I don't see this card seeing any main board play, I do think this is the strongest out of the gods in terms of standard play, just because it can run with a game so fast.
yes, this is definitely a card that I can see as a finisher option in Demir colors for control. I mean, once again, it's 5 mana, do nothing. But let's say you you got up to 9 mana, and this is a really grindy matchup, or it's a very long control mirror. You drop this with your 5 mana, and you use the 4 at instant speed to recur something either from your grave or your opponent's. And if you're black, blue, black, you'll probably be killing a lot of things or countering a lot of things. So graveyards are probably stacked at this point. And then from then on, you're just going to keep recurring value. Of course, your opponent can kill it, but 5/5 is a pretty chunky body. There's not too much that can kill that. So each turn is going to be loot draining, and scrying is exactly something that a control deck wants to do. So yeah, I can definitely see this having potential. I'm just wary of these cards that cost 5+ and have no impact on the board when you play them.
All right, next up is Claim to Fame. It is an aftermath card. The front half is for 1 black, sorcery. Return target creature with converted mana cost 2 or less from your graveyard to the battlefield. And then the aftermath side, so you can only activate that if it's in your graveyard, is 2 mana, 1 generic, 1 red. For sorcery, you can exile it, and then target creature gets +2 and gains +2 power and gains haste until end of turn.
Let's all turn our heads to the right. Okay,
Yeah.
there we go.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
Gonna have to see a chiropractor after this. Claim is an extremely strong card. I'm not too sure about its standard prospects because generally in standard, minions that cost 2 or less don't have that much impact in the game. But in a format like Modern, where you have access to cards like Death Shadow, Tarmogoyf, Snapcaster Mage, there is a lot of power here. I definitely think this will see play in a number of Modern decks, generally as like a 1 or 2 of, or a sideboard option. It does compete with the card Kolaghan's Command, which gives a little bit more flexibility than this card
Certainly,
while
yeah.
still having a similar effect. However, the great part about the claim side is that you're able to reanimate a creature. You don't have to play it like with Kolaghan's Command. It adds it to your hand, and then you have to play it again. So there's a lot of mana advantage with this. I know a lot of people have experimented with like Grim Flare. Like you can get this into the graveyard off of his ability, and then you can also, like later in the game, haste out a Grim Flare with the Fame side. That's kind of interesting. Death Shadow, this is a cheaper Kolaghan's Command, so there's a lot of utility there. Personally, I think I'm leaning towards Kolaghan's Command. I still think that's the better of the 2 cards, but there's no denying there's a lot of power here for sure.
I think this is definitely a powerful card for older formats now. Because there's so much power at 2 mana, or even at 1 mana. In these older formats, there's a lot of very choice targets, and I think being able to pay 3 mana to haste out a huge Death Shadow is nasty, absolutely nasty, and it just fits right into the colors too, which is just absolutely perfect. Of
It
those
kind of makes me want to
Grixis.
experiment with like a Mardu Stoneblade in like Legacy,
Ooh,
where you can
ooh, that's
where you can
spicy.
like they kill off your Stoneforge Mystic when you play a turn 2. You can reanimate it with Claim, or later in the game you can haste it out with Fame and then tap it right away.
Ooh,
That
I
I
like
don't know.
it. Hold on to
That's something that would
hold
feel
oh
interesting.
hold on to that though. We might brew something sometime later. That sounds
Oh,
interesting.
I'm sure it's trash,
I don't care. It
but it
sounds
sounds
cool.
fun.
It sounds
Yeah.
fun. All right, so those are the gold cards that we selected to go over. Lots of very cool stuff. With those cards are very interesting, and there's definitely some modern implications with this card for sure. All right, we're gonna start with red now, picking up where we left off in our card reviews. First off, we have Imminent Doom, 2 generic and a red for an enchantment, and there's a battlefield with a Doom counter on it. Whenever you cast a spell with CMC equal to the number of Doom counters on Imminent Doom, it deals damage to target creature player, and then you put another Doom counter on it.
What is this card?
Worst card of the set. This card is so bad. I,
What is this?
it's a 3 mana art enchantment that basically forces you to hold on to your 1 mana burn spells until you can cast. It's so garbage. I mean, at 3, okay, let's take it one step at a time. In standard, this is almost Cold Stone do nothing. I can't think of too many 1 mana spells off the top of my head what can you even cast at 1 mana? I mean, yeah, there's all you have white weenie decks and aggressive decks that have some 1 mana spells. Draven Inspector, I guess, is like the one I can think of. But even then, you're gonna save your Draven Inspector so you can drop this on turn 3, so you can do a turn 4 Imminent Doom, Draven Inspector, put a Doom counter, deal 1 damage to your opponent. It's awful.
Not only do you have to like save your 1 drop to get this started, but you also have to be able to play on a curve. So that means you need your 1 drops, your 2 drops, your
Mm-hmm.
3 drops. Like even if you have like the aftermath cards, which kind of help with this because they have multiple sides, so generally they'll have like multiple mana costs, so you can get triggers multiple times. It still just feels really bad. Like if Imminent Doom was at 2 mana or even 1 mana, I still would not be sure about playing this card, but it would be pretty viable, like at 1 mana.
Of course, it'd be
Like it'd be
viable.
worth experimenting with.
The entire issue with this card is that it's 3 mana. It just throws you off your entire curve. It throws you off your entire curve, and then you have to be back on curve when you want to drop it down. I mean, when we talk to burn, I mean the easiest inclusion you can think of this is in a modern burn deck, and then it sucks there because by the time you get to turn 3, you don't want to be holding onto your bolts. You don't want to have to hold onto your bolts to turn 3, or even if you don't even draw this card. And if you used all your bolts or stuff like that, this card is stone cold dead if you draw
Well,
into
my
it late.
question is, okay, so you put this in burn, you use your lightning bolt, you use your lightning helix after that, and then where's your 3 CMC spell? You're gonna bring
Exactly.
like
Yeah.
you're gonna yeah like where do you go from there?
Right.
And
And then
this
this
card,
card had a total payoff of 3 damage, which is wow, impressive.
this is like one of the most dead cards like late in the game I've ever seen.
Mm-hmm.
This
Absolutely.
just does nothing.
So bad.
Like at least like when it enters the battlefield, have it deal damage to a creature or something. Like at least have it do something immediately. Like if you're gonna make it be 3 mana, I don't know.
I deem the worst card in the set. Let's move on.
Yeah, that's really bad. All right, next up is Earthshaker Kenra for 2 CMC. That's 1 generic and a red. You get a 2/1 creature Jackal Warrior with haste. When it enters the battlefield, target creature with power less than or equal to Earthshaker Kenra power cannot block this turn. It also has Eternalize for 6 mana, 4 generic, 2 red. I like this guy.
So this is exactly something that red deck wins, aggressive red decks have been looking for in standard. It fits the bill perfectly. It's a very hasty creature, perfect stats. 2 mana 2/1 haste is perfectly playable, but it also gives you evasion with forcing stopping a blocker. I mean, I can totally see this plus some other cards that we've been seeing in this set and the previous set pushing a mono red or some kind of red aggro deck into the format. You know, not like an aggro deck like vehicle that we've been seeing, but like a seriously blisteringly fast, like 2 ticks red deck, getting your
Yeah,
opponent.
this card's pretty strong. The only thing I would say about like your uh, typical red deck wins deck. Sorry, that's deck twice in a row. There is that they're generally not going to get to Eternalize. They just don't play enough lands. I mean, if they do happen to get late in the game, that's pretty strong. A
And
4/4
see, but that's the thing.
haster,
That's
yeah,
great though. They don't get to eternalize that often, but that's fine because honestly, frankly, I think most people would be fine with a 2-mana 2/1 haste with that text. Being able to force down a blocker. But the eternalize is just a cherry on top of the sundae because if you get to that late game, if you get to that if you have a mana sink to put out a haste 4/4 that puts out a that prevents a creature with power 4 or less from blocking. That's huge. That's a huge swing in the late game.
yeah, that is strong.
Yeah.
Yeah, I definitely like this card. I mean, it does kind of hit this like weird spot that aggressive decks like a problem that they already have, so it kind of compounds it. Is that if you draw this late in the game, like and your opponent already has like a solid blocker with 3 power or more,
No,
this
fair,
card doesn't do too much.
fair. But I think if
But
you're in that scenario, there's not much you can be doing in the
yeah,
red deck with this kind of game style. Yeah, This is a very promising card. I think this can be a mover and a shaker in standard. That's a terrible joke. That's a terrible. All right, next up we have a Braid. This is one generic and a red for an instant. Choose one. It deals 3 damage to target creature or destroy target artifact. This is a seriously very good, flexible, powerful removal spell. I mean, we have a lightning strike that only hits creatures, or a shatter, both at the same mana cost that I pay normally. I mean, with the amount of flexibility, you'd expect maybe an uptick in mana cost, but this is still 2 mana at instant speed. It's a fantastic card. This is absolutely seen play in standard, 100%.
yeah, for sure.
I mean, it's
This
just
card,
yeah.
this card says "fuck you, Mardu vehicles."
It's incredibly strong against Mardu vehicles. It's really good against control too, because like you can either deal with some sort of manland or deal with some kind of creature that you maybe want to be that you weren't expecting to have. Like you generally want to board out most of your removal when you're against control, but this one you can keep in because you can keep it. You can deal with some kind of creature that they might have boarded in or they had that you didn't know about, but also deal with their Gearhulks. Incidentally. So this is very powerful. This is absolutely
Yeah, 2 mana to destroy a torrential Gearhulk is
yeah.
that sounds pretty good.
Absolutely main boardable removal due to its flexibility. In the standard format right now, there's a ton of artifacts floating around. Powerful card. This definitely, absolutely 100% guaranteed. This is seeing a ton of play everywhere.
All right, next card is the titular, whatever. Card of the
Titular.
set. Titular. There you go. This is the titular card of the set. Hour of Devastation.
What are we? Some kind of Suicide Squad?
We in a movie now. It's 5 mana, so 3 generic, red for sorcery at rare. All creatures lose indestructible until end of turn. Hour of Devastation deals 5 damage to each creature and each non-Bolas planeswalker. Wow, that's really weird text. All creatures lose indestructible until end of turn.
It's trinket text, but the best kind of trinket text.
Yeah. I like this card in the sense that it does something we don't see too often in red. It is a bigger board wipe that also deals with indestructible, which is something red just inherently has a hard time dealing with. Mostly because all of its removal is damage based. So that's pretty good. In standard, if you happen not to be in like white or even black, you might want to pick this up if you need a big board wipe for like your sideboard.
Actually,
like the blue-red control decks are probably going to want this.
yeah, no, actually, I think this is one of the biggest, most impactful cards of the entire set. Actually, I think
really?
if you are a blue-red control deck, this is a godsend. Because the problem with standard right now is, you said dealing with indestructible creatures is something red does struggle with, but the blue-red control decks at the moment also do struggle with walkers a lot. Walkers are one of its biggest issues. And you think with red you'd be able to just burn walkers out, but I mean, I think you've been paying attention. Most people have been paying attention. Burn is terrible in standard right now. There's almost no main.
You gotta pay 3 mana for a lightning bolt.
There's almost no playable burn at the moment, which is awful. So this is This is actually absolutely something that blue red decks are gonna need. It's a big walker. Big walker. I'm sorry. It's a big rat that deals with pretty much every creature that you need to deal with. Deals with walkers, which is our big issue for the control list. I'm sorry, and it also leaves your own Gearhawks alive too, which is a huge
Yeah, your
bonus.
torrential gearhooks. That's
Yeah.
true. Props to the Timmy out there who resolves this after they have a Nicol Bolas on the field.
Exactly. I want
That
that
has
to
to
happen.
be so great. It has to feel so good, like watching your opponent's board just dissolve. They
Right.
lose their planeswalkers, and then they're like, "Oh, what about damage to Nicol Bolas?" And you get the point. You get the point at that clause, and be like, to each non-Bolas planeswalker, "Thank you, good day." That just has to be so gratifying.
Bow to the king, baby. Bow to the
Yeah,
king. This is an incredibly powerful card. I'm very excited for this card coming in standard.
yeah, it's pretty neat.
Red. There's a lot of power in red. For a red based control decks have a lot of really nice tools. Red based aggro decks have a lot of good tools. I mean, looking forward, our difference is bringing a lot of good tools to red, for sure.
Yeah, it's been like how many standard sets since we've seen a red deck wins, like a proper red deck wins?
Well,
It's been too long.
maybe we'd see one if they actually print burn wizards. Perhaps that's a topic for another day. All right,
Kids these days don't even know what red deck wins means.
let's go on to green. First up, we have Ramanop Excavator. This is a 2 generic and a green for a 2/3 Naga Cleric. With you may play land cards from your graveyard. So this is essentially Crucible of Worlds on a stick. So that's good,
Yeah,
right? That's good, right?
that's great.
This is obviously this is gonna be a lot of EDH players are very excited about it. Crucible of Worlds is an incredibly powerful card. Honestly, it's pretty busted. Honestly, you can listen if you're degenerate. The first thing you're thinking is, I can wasteland over and over again. This is amazing. But there's other implications too. Bring your fetches back. Bring back land from your terrible opponents who use land destruction on you. Crucible Worlds has a lot of very implications. The fact that you can now play multiple Crucible Worlds, you have a second Crucible Worlds. This is a Crucible Worlds that is tutorable through creature tutors, which are plentiful in
Yeah.
older formats. Yeah, this is
I mean,
cool.
Titiana and like what's his name? The big blob of mana from Zendikar.
Omnath.
Omnath, yeah, they'll love to see this guy.
Mm-hmm.
And even in modern, like this is by no means like a tier 1 deck, but there is like a green white like hate bears style of deck that runs like Renegade Rallier plus trying to remember that one guy's name, but it's a green white card that you can sack to get another creature card from your graveyard. And like they'll play Ghost Quarter to have like a similar effect where you can Ghost Quarter, your opponent's land. It triggers Revolt. You get the Ghost Quarter back, and then this adds a little more redundancy to that deck. Like, because at some point the theory is your opponent runs out of basics, and then that just turns Ghost Quarter into a straight up wasteland.
Yeah.
That could be interesting. We'll have to see. I don't think that's like tier 1 or anything, but that gives that deck like a new toy to play with. It also can be hit off Collected Company,
Yeah,
which is
Coco, right? That's
another
huge.
strong thing. And
Yeah.
like even getting back a fetch land, like that's a lot of value there as well. I mean it's interesting.
Right. I mean,
And
there's some interesting implications for standard as well. Kind of similar to where you were pointing at modern. I don't think there's anything incredibly tier 1 or incredibly powerful that you can do in standard, but there's a lot of toys you can do. You can bring back evolving wilds. You can bring back cycle lands. You can bring back desert lands that you might be sacrificing. There's a lot of desert
fair
ladder
enough.
themes. Man
Mhm.
lands that have been killed. You can bring those back as well. Discarded lands through delirium decks. I mean, there's certainly implications. I don't think it might be good enough to get there. 3 mana 2/3 is definitely below the curve for most decks, but I mean theoretically at 4 mana you can drop this and play a land right there, so you're gonna immediately get
Yeah.
value.
I mean
Uh,
to be honest, like really you only need to get this guy's ability to proc once, and then
mhm,
you've got plenty of value from him.
definitely right.
Anything else is like just gravy.
Exactly. Yeah.
Now, before we move on to the next card, can I voice like one like concern?
Sure.
Like this is not like a technical concern. This is purely aesthetics. This card has like a visual effect that's reminiscent of like split second cards, like Angel's Grace. Like I understand like it's the slant of a pyramid in the
Ah,
background,
I see what you
but
mean.
it has this effect that almost looks like the split second cards, like a weird
Dude,
line
I
that
did,
goes through it.
I don't know why, but I completely went over that. I mean, I was just drawn into that like green plant thing that he was doing, but yeah, yeah, he's like crawling over a pyramid thing. Yeah, I didn't even notice that. Yeah, I see what you mean.
Yeah,
Yeah, yeah,
but it just reminds me of, like cards like Angel's
right,
Grace,
right.
Procyon Grip. Yeah,
Can we bring back split second? That was a cool mechanic. That was a sweet
the
mechanic.
stack ends.
The seconds
It
now.
ends here.
All right, let's go on to our next card.
All right, next card is Ramunap Hydra. It is 4 CMC, Creature Snake Hydra, 3/3 at rare. It has Vigilance, Reach, Trample. Ramunap Hydra has +1/+1 as long as you control Desert. Ramunap Hydra has +1/+1 as long as there's a Desert card in your graveyard. This guy's boring.
It's very boring, but I mean,
It's a bunch of stats and
a
keywords.
bunch of stats and a bunch of keywords. There is potential. I mean, the deserts matters theme is a very interesting idea. I mean, let's look at it right here. So it's a 4-mana 3/3 Vigilance Reach Trample, kind of lame, but so long as you have desert on field and a desert in the graveyard, this suddenly becomes a 4-mana 5/5 with Vigilance, Reach, and Trample. That's
Okay,
not to say that it's worth it, though. I mean, from what we can tell, the desert. Right now, the problem with the Desert Matters deck is that there's not too much payoff for going Desert Matters 100%. You don't really have too many cards that interact with Desert, and the ones that do are generally on the weaker end. And also another argument that I'm pulling up is that what we've learned from previously. I don't know if you remember Woodland Wanderer from
Yeah, I was about to say that. I was like, oh, Woodland Wanderer didn't see play even back when 4-color decks were amok.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's the problem, is that, yes, it has Vigilance, Reach, and Trample, which, are great keywords, but none protect it, and none do anything immediately once it hits the battlefield. It's just a bunch of stats.
Right. I think what Woodland Wanderer has taught us that just a bunch of stats sometimes is just not good enough. You know, perhaps at a lower mana cost this would be a different story, but once we get the 4+ mana cost,
sure.
Once we get the 4+ mana cost, we're really looking for some other benefits, especially some enter the battlefield triggers. I miss you, Rhino. I really do.
I really wish this guy was like a 2-mana 2/2 with the same text. I mean, I know that'd probably be absurd, but like just being able to turn 1, throw down a desert land, and then play this guy turn 2 and have a 3/3 with those texts, like that definitely makes it more interesting and gives you, reason to play deserts. But
I'm sorry, I just threw up a little in my mouth.
yeah, it's like the good old days of Fleece Mainline.
Right.
Fuck that card.
Yeah. This I think it's unfortunate. There's a lot of promise with this card. It's just I think we know from past experience, it's probably just not good enough.
Yeah.
All right. Next up, we have Uranus' Last Stand. So this is a green for a sorcery. Create a 5/4 green snake creature token. Land you control do not untap during your next untap step. Okay, so I have been pretty adamant in my belief that this entire sucks. The entire cycle sucks. But this is probably the most standout card of the entire cycle. I mean, first of all, 2 mana for a 5/4 is gigantic.
For sure.
That is a ton of stats for 2 mana. And if you can, go to your next step, not untap, but stay with me, untap, quote unquote, and move to combat. I mean, that's such a beating. It's such a massive beating that you really don't give a crap about missing your next turn. I mean, why do you care if you miss your next turn? You have 5/4 now. The problem is there is just so much good removal that lines up with this card. Push kills it immediately.
Yep.
No question about it. Grass also deals with it handily, and that's also 2 mana equal trade. Unsummon destroys it immediately as well. We have Unsummon now. 1 blue bounce something that just destroys a token. It kind of just really lines up poorly with a lot of the removal in the standard format at the moment.
Yeah, I think that's pretty much the reason you said, is that there's too much removal that covers this card. But playing a 2 mana, like, okay, not even the 2 mana part, but playing a turn 2 5/4, it's just extremely strong.
Yeah, turn 2 5/4. If this thing survives and you get to your next turn and you're smashing it for a 5, I'm scared. That's crazy strong.
My main argument for this card is not only is it good early, as a 2 mana 5/4, it's not terrible late. Like when your hand's empty, you top deck it. Oh, I'll just play it right away. 2 mana 5/4. 2 of my lands don't untap. Who cares? I have 6 lands out.
No,
That's
true.
like
Yeah.
in the late game. Like it's when you're in top deck mode, it's pretty strong as well.
Well, but to be fair though, you're saying you have all these lands available, and the untap downside doesn't impact you that much. But that means you're also not tapping those lands on your turn, essentially. So it's kind of a damned if you do, damned if you don't. You're wasting mana either way. You know?
Well, I mean, this card is bad in the mid game, like when both players still have, fairly reasonable sized hands, and you want to be playing, more than one spell a turn.
So you're
This
saying
card is really
maybe
bad.
in top deck mode when it's like the only card you have in
This
hand.
card is good in top deck mode, and it's good on turn 2,
Mm-hmm.
which is very interesting. Not a whole lot of cards work that way.
True. Yeah.
But yeah, I think this card will probably end up screwing up your mana too much in the mid game, and like you said, there's too much removal that hits it.
Yeah.
It probably will not see play, but it's
But if there's
the
a hype,
most likely of the cycle.
right? If there's a hyper aggressive green deck, if there's some kind of green stomping deck that comes up in the format, this is absolutely something that's you're gonna look forward to do, including. Now, is the downside worth it? We'll have to see. What's next, Doug?
All right, next up is Hour of Promise. It's 5 mana, 4 generic, 1 green for sorcery at rare. Search your library for up to 2 land cards. Make a note that's not basics, it's just 2 land cards. Put them onto the battlefield tapped, then shuffle your library. Then, if you control 3 or more deserts, create 2 2/2 black zombie creature tokens.
This card is very promising.
Yeah.
Wink.
Oh, damn it. Yeah, this is solid. I mean, it's a little better than Explosive Vegetation in the sense that you can, get whatever land you want. It's a little worse because it's for 1 more mana. However, if you are playing like a desert-style deck, getting 4/4 stats is really strong. A 5 mana 4/4 that, gets you 3 desert. Gets you 2 lands and puts them on the battlefield immediately. That's pretty good.
I mean, that's exactly the kind of effect a ramp deck is looking for, right? Once you get, the biggest problem with casting a ramp spell is that it just leaves you kind of vulnerable. You're just spending your mana to not impact the board, but rather just put lands into play to impact the board later on. This aids you in that, but also gives you a board to protect yourself. That's a perfect
2 jump
combination.
blockers, pretty nice.
Yeah.
What the thing that this card really screams out to me? I can't believe Primeval Titan was a card once. Because for 1 more mana, you're getting a 6/6 with trample. Basically does the same thing, but also triggers that effect anytime it attacks.
Oh, that whole entire Titan cycle was so good. Oh,
yeah.
Yeah, no, I know. This does harken back to the days of Primeval Titan. Unfortunately, those days are past us. But let's look onto the future. So this card has a lot of cool little tricks you can do in standard. So because this is any land instead of basics, you can also fetch out 2 shrines of the Forsaken Gods, which immediately puts you up to 7 lands, which activates the second ability of able to tapping 2 generic mana. 2 colorless mana, for creature cards. So that immediately puts you up to 9 mana. Next turn, if you can get your next land drop, that's 10 mana. So essentially, you can do a turn 6. No, not even turn 6. Sorry. If you've been ramping consistently, turn 5 or even a turn 4 Ulamog. Where have I heard that before?
Either works. Marvel cough.
Mm-hmm.
This, I don't know. That seems a lot like Magical Christmas Land to me.
Is it?
This
really
is a good card. This is a good card. I'm not saying it's not.
It's not that far fetched. I mean, because it's not that difficult to set up. Because as long as you have been ramping, you ramped up. Let's say you played a 3 mana ramp spell on turn 3, that ramps you up to 5 mana. You played this on 5 mana, get your 2 shrines, boom boom shrine. That's 9 mana. Untap, get your next land, Ulamog. That's not. It's good. Obviously, that's a good draw, but it's not. It's not that crazy either. Now the problem is, it's going to be tricky to be able to incorporate that desert clause. That desert clause might end up not coming into play that often, because if you're trying to include desert lands, if you're going for the 2 shrine plan, then that means you're going to have those 3 deserts in the first place, or you're going to need a high density deserts. If not, then you're going to have to be searching for those deserts yourself with this ability, but then if you are, then you're negating the shrine plan. So there's a lot of stuff going at odds against it, and the 2 making the zombies is a big part of being able to cast a 5 mana ram spell and not be punished. But,
All I know is that I'm glad when the Ixalan hits, battle for Zendikar is rotating out. Because as a mid-range player, I hate ramp, and I
Mm.
really don't want to see turn 4, turn 5 Ulamogs.
No,
I don't want to see that.
an early Ulamog is a beating. No, I think there's a lot of potential in the standard for a red green ramp deck to come surface up again. I mean, the playing with that is a little tricky, but I'm sure somebody smarter than me will figure it out.
Someone on Reddit pointed this out,
Yeah.
but this is a green card depicting the Locust God, which is a blue-red card, is it? That summons two black zombies.
Yeah, I did hear that. That's kind of funny. I will admit.
Yeah.
All right. So that's the final green card. Let's move on to artifact. Yeah, artifacts next. I knew that. Here's our first artifact, Crook of Condemnation. This is too generic for an artifact, obviously. You can pay 1 and tap it to exile target card from a graveyard, or you can pay 1 to exile Crook of Condemnation to exile all cards from all graveyards. So this is bad relic, basically.
I mean, the one advantage this has over Relic is that if you're specifically using a card to, hate out cards in your opponent's graveyard that either have aftermath or, have similar recurring effects, this is very good for that because
Mm-hmm.
Relic doesn't allow you to exile a target card. It just has, your opponent exiles a card. So you get to reuse this effect. So that's good there.
No, yeah, it's definitely good. I mean, I'm just glad that I'm glad that Wizards is printing graveyard hate or specifically, more specific hate cards coming up in the future. This is definitely a good step forward. I don't think it's seen play in standard. I don't think the effect is powerful enough to warrant it, but it's good to have. It's definitely good to have. This is a nice safety valve that we should be able to have access to in standard. Absolutely for sure.
Such a shame that this doesn't cycle itself like Relic does.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I would have even been perfectly fine with, the second clause, the second activated ability costing a little more just to get that draw card tacked on.
Oh,
Because,
yeah, sure.
One of the big issues with these specific hate cards is that, they're really powerful, like, when you get to use them, but not so much like if it's like a situation in the game where you don't need it right now, or you've already answered your opponent's hate, like you draw this in multiples, and you just need to get it out of your hand so you can find another part of your deck that gets you towards your win con.
For sure.
And that's why Relic was so strong.
Yeah.
I don't know, but it's a good hate card.
That's a good hate card.
You need good graveyard hate. Yeah.
Good to see this in standard.
All right, next up is Abandoned Sarcophagus. It is a 3-mana artifact at rare. You may cast non-land cards with cycling from your graveyard. If a card with cycling would be put into your graveyard from anywhere and it wasn't cycled, exiled it instead. This is an interesting card. I mean, do I think it'll see play? Probably not. And even if it does, it will probably only be as a 1 or 2 of, like in a cycle style control deck. What is that one card? It's the blue, like, 7-mana enchantment or whatever.
Oh, that is not what I expected you to go through at all. 7-mana enchantment, blue 7-mana enchantment. What are you talking about?
I think it was from Almond Kit. It's the one that, like, if you have 7 cards, your cards with cycle, like in hand, your cards with cycling.
Oh, new
0.
perspectives.
Yeah, new perspectives.
It doesn't cost 7. It's actually surprisingly it's cheaper than that. But
oh, really?
Yeah,
okay.
it's not.
Sorry, this shows you how little I know of that deck, but
it's not a good card.
I mean, this gives like the people who want to play that style deck,
not
abandoned.
Not abandoned. Bandit Sarcophagus is very interesting. It's a powerful effect. I'm talking about new percent. That new percent is not a good card. That whole deck is very jank. Listen, the deck has power. I'm not saying it's some tier 5 jank deck. It's like tier 2.5 maybe, but like this is not good. The Sarcophagus though, it's interesting. This is a bit of a stretch. Stay with me here, but I've heard comparisons to Yawgmoth's Will. Right? Okay, I know, but it is similar in the fact that you can cast, as long as you have the mana, cast the cards that you have in your graveyard. Again, I mean, it does have this interesting clause where if a card was cycling was put into your graveyard and wasn't cycled, exile instead. So basically telling you the game plan is you're cycling your cards, and you're casting them from your graveyard, or maybe you're casting them without this on the battlefield. Later you're playing this. Then later you're playing this, and then you're utilizing the cards again. I mean, don't get me wrong. That's a powerful ability. That's definitely strong. There's a lot of implications.
If you have like a strong way of blinking this card, like bouncing it off the battlefield and back on at will, like You can play a card with cycling, like say a creature. You bounce this off of it somehow. That creature dies, goes to your graveyard. You play your abandoned sarcophagus, or it comes back to the battlefield, and then you can just get that card back since it's not on the battlefield for that exile clause to take place.
I like the
But
cut of your
I
jib.
don't know. That's too janky for my taste. But
It's so janky. But now I want to try to brew something like that. I don't know how. I don't know what you could brew with that, but that sounds awesome. um,
what about that Aether Trade Wind spell that like bounces one of your cards and bounces one of your opponents? Maybe something like
something
that.
like that. Jesus. That's...
Yeah, I don't know.
Holy crap.
That is way too janky, but the value, man, the value.
Mm-hmm. I think we shouldn't write off this card too soon. This is a very, I think there's a very powerful effect that a cycling matters deck, it just might push it over the edge. Right now, I think a cycling deck is like tier 2, I would say, in standard. Drakehaven is the Drakehaven decks are pretty powerful, but just aren't able to keep up with the more aggressive decks in the format. But, I can see this having, this might be it. This just might be it. Next up, we have another card that interacts pretty well with cycling. Hollow 1. This is 5 generic for a Golem artifact creature, 4/4. It costs 2 less to cast for each card you cycle or discard this turn, and it has cycling too. So, let's say you cycle 2 cards. This is suddenly 1 mana. So you paid 5 mana for a 4/4 draw 2, right? That's pretty good, I think. That seems pretty decent.
Yeah, I mean, even in Modern, this card is a little interesting because you have cards like Faithless Looting, which Faithless Looting is a red mana card that you basically get to loot 2.
Oh, right. Because it discards, yeah.
And that discounts this by 4 just off that red spell, like that 1 mana spell. So there's some interest in like Modern with this. Do I think it'll see play? Probably not, but it doesn't die to Fatal Push, which is one of the premier removal spells in Modern at the moment.
Yes.
And that alone is enough for it to be interesting. There are like realistic scenarios where this can cost 0, and a 0 mana 4/4, is nothing to scoff at.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know. We'll see. I mean, this card has very interesting design. I like it.
It's on the fringe of playable, I believe, but very close. It's there. It's there. And in fact, I might be wrong. I might be eating my words soon, but this coupled with that sarcophagus, the cycling deck just might come together and just might be good enough. Take a PT cycling. Do it.
Yeah. Something that sounds fun is like if you get a Noose Constrictor out, and then like you have 2 of these in hand, and like you just discard a bunch of cards.
Right.
I don't know how that'd work, but that sounds fun.
No, I know. Yeah, that's definitely. All right, let's move on to the lands.
All right. Next up is Scavenger Grounds. It is a rare desert land. It has tap to add colorless to your mana pool, and for 2, it has another ability. For 2 generic, you can tap it to sacrifice a desert, exile all lands from all graveyards. Yeah, this card's good.
Yeah, I mean,
it's a hate card that doesn't take up a lot of opportunity cost from your deck because you can just slap this in place of a land. If you're like a 1 color or 2 color deck, you're not that greedy on colors. This is perfectly fine.
Yeah, like Crook of Condemnation, it's good to see Graveyard Hate, and like you said, because it is land, it doesn't take up much real estate. It's a spell on a land, so fine, you're not losing much opportunity to cost there. But also, like Crook of Condemnation, I also kind of don't think it'll see much play. I mean, don't get me wrong, I'm glad that we have these kind of effects, but I don't think sacrificing a land to exile all cards from all graveyard is going to be important enough or impactful enough that you're going to want to be sticking these lands in your deck anyways. And whether you're going to want to be using sideboard slots for this card is questionable as well.
Yeah, I think that's a fair argument.
Mm-hmm. But good to have. Thanks. It's good that we're actually getting these ones. Alright, next we have another desert. In fact, they're all deserts. Endless Sands. You can tap it to add one colorless to your mana pool. You can pay 2 to tap it to exile target creature you control, or pay 4 to tap it, sack Endless Sands, return each creature card exile with Endless Sands to the battlefield under its owner's control. This is very interesting. This is a very interesting ability. So you can pay 2 to tap it to save your creatures from removal, save your creatures from wipes, or perhaps you have a late game plan. You can exile some creatures with good enter the battlefield effects, torrential Gearhulks, other sorts of Gearhulks, and then later on pay the 4 mana to sacrifice it, bring them back, get your triggers again. I think this is abysmally slow, but
Yeah,
it's a powerful effect. I
it
mean, there's not
it
much.
is
Yeah.
extremely slow. Um, One thing that sounds really sucky is that you go with that plan. You're exiling your creatures, and they somehow bounce that land because this is not the same
Right. You have to tap.
instance of
Yeah.
endless sands that so it won't work for that other. It won't work for that effect. Creatures that get exiled with endless sands. If your endless sands get bounced, that's no longer the same instance.
Yeah. I mean, luckily there's not too many things that can bounce lands in standard, but
Yeah,
yeah, this is very slow. This is very very slow. I don't think it's seeing any play in standard at the moment. But the effect is very cool. There's not much.
yeah, that's interesting.
I don't think we've seen this on a land. Correct me if I'm wrong.
I kind of wish like the middle activation, the two generic to exile a creature you control. I wish that cost just a little less. Like if it was at 0, this card would probably be busted.
Oh my
But
god.
if it was at
I don't know. I
1,
don't know what you could do, but at 0 man, I'm sure somebody's gonna figure
yeah, I'm
something.
sure it'd be busted somewhere. But at just paying 1, that'd make it just right. I think just because like if you're against that control deck and they keep removing your creatures, you can pay 1 mana. Basically to get to use them another time.
Yeah, yeah,
And to
definitely.
me, that's interesting.
hmm All right, one last card we got there. Is
Yep.
why don't you take the lead on this?
This is Hostile Desert. It is a land desert, and I bet you weren't thinking we were going to get a manland in this set, but we are. Unlike manlands, it does not tap. I mean, it does not enter the battlefield tapped. You can tap it right away to add 1 colorless to your mana pool, and then you can pay 2 and exile a land card from your graveyard. That's weird, and it becomes a 3/4 until end of turn with no keywords.
Right.
So this is a weird manland.
I mean, the first
I
thing.
kind of like it, but
Yeah, I mean, the first thing that pops to your eye is that it doesn't come in like tab, like you said. That's pretty
yeah,
powerful. I mean,
that's interesting.
essentially that also pretty much provides you a blocker the turn you play. I mean, obviously it doesn't have haste, so you can't attack immediately, but it gives you a blocker, and next turn you can activate it for cheap too. 2 mana for 3/4 is cheap, albeit you do have to pay that extra cost of exiling land card from your graveyard. But if you're playing a deck where deserts matter, or you're playing a lot of cycling lands, that a lot you can potentially have a lot of lands available to you. In modern, it's a lot easier because you have fetch lands, so your graveyard is gonna be full of lands all the time. Questionable if it'll see play in modern, but
I kind of doubt it, just for the fact that decks where you play fetch lands are generally going to be multicolored, and when you play a man land, it's part of it is for the fact it fixes your colors. This does neither. It's weird.
right doesn't
Um,
yeah. I mean, I suppose
no,
the not being able to feast your mana is the cost you pay for a 2 mana 3/4 mana land that does not come in tapped.
yeah, because like a deck like Eldrazi Tron, for example, in theory would love to have this card, but they don't have a whole lot of good ways to get lands into their graveyard. So it's generally going to be like less good than a waste because, at least waste, if you get something exiled off like a path to exile, you can find it and fetch it out. So I don't know. This card is strange. Like it has really strange design space. I like it though.
Yeah, no, this is
It's very
this is
different for a man land.
this is a card that gets me. This is a card that gets me really excited to try to brew something in standard for that. Really works with desert, because this is a cool payoff when you're in
Yeah.
deserts or in a deck that just wants to be throwing lands in the graveyard. Maybe even Gitrog Monster could see play. That'd be fun. That's getting my gears turning. I want to do this. I want to do this. Maybe sometime later. All right.
This guy.
Yeah.
Sorry, one last thing. This guy with Ramonap Excavator is pretty interesting.
No, yeah, it's good. Ramana Expeditor plays real nice with manlands, definitely for sure.
Yeah.
All right, so that's it for our devastation. We finally made it. Only took us about 2 weeks to get to the entire set. What do you think about our devastation overall?
I think overall, like, there's a lot of interesting mechanics to explores, and it offers a lot for EDH players. Like, it offers 3 great commanders. Well, 2 great, one that's kind of um, but overall, I think it's pretty weak power level. There are some flexible cards. There are a few cards that I think are good enough to see modern play, at least sideboards, like your claim to fame. But I don't know. It just seems like kind of weak in the power level scale. curious as to how much impact it'll have on standard.
It is a. I agree. I think it is. What we've been seeing is has a lot of weaker power level compared to Kaladesh and even compared to Shadows, from previous. But I can't help but kind of like this set. There's a lot of very cool mechanics that have been throwing around in this set and the entire block in general. Yes, the power level is kind of weaker, but they've been introducing a lot of cool stuff. The cards have been not quite. I didn't want to use the word powerful because it really isn't. But the cards have a lot of unique abilities, and in the end, there have been stuff that sees some significant play in standard. And I think our division moving on is gonna have some impact. Not quite the impact that Kaladesh had, but it will see lasting impact on the format. It's no battle for Zendikar. Let's put it simply.
Yeah, thank goodness. Oh man, how long till Gideon rotates out again? I feel like it's been forever.
3 months. 3 months. I'm literally counting down. I'm counting down when Gideon comes out of format. I am so glad for that to come out. Okay.
Yes.
Well,
The battle for Gideon.
the battle for Gideon is almost over. All right, so that's the end of our main topic, main phase. So we're gonna move on to our combat step now. We're gonna do a little quick combat step. The hot topic that seems to be coming up the past few weeks is the issues of card quality and card print quality lately. There's been a lot of complaints and a lot of documentation of a lot of cards curling, a lot of ripped edges, a lot of dark ink, and all overall general card stock of the cards being much poorer than they were before. Obviously this isn't new. This has happened before. Misprints have happened before. There have been weird chances of cards curling. I mean, we've had foils curl on us before. When everybody's had foils curl on them, but it seems like lately, just these reports have been coming more and more. Just coming up more and more, and a lot of people are on the community and on the internet being pretty irate about it. Now, the question I bring up is this a problem that Wizards needs to be addressing, and is this a problem that they should be worried about?
Well, I mean, it's hard for me to speak out on this just because I'm a modern player, so I generally don't buy a whole lot of newer cards. Card quality is important because one of the main appeals of Magic is that it's a physical game. There's a lot of digital card games that, compete with it, but they're not able to compete in, the physical sense, like of being able to actually go somewhere, get a hold of your cards, open packs, be able to sift through them, with your hands.
Right.
That is actually an important aspect of the game in terms of, it's able to compete in a niche that the other card games just can't, the other digital card games just can't, address. And so I do think it is important that in a collector card game, collectible card game, that your cards be good quality.
I agree.
Because, having poor quality cards, greatly diminishes their value. People don't want to buy damaged cards unless they, have to, like either it's a budget problem or for some demented reason they like damaged cards. Or it's a card from a long time ago where it's kind of hard to find near mint. That's not really what people want. They want their cards to be in pristine shape. A lot of people, they spend a lot of money to get sleeves so they can protect their cards. They don't want their cards to be damaged right out of the pack. I think
curling or some insane.
Yeah, or curling.
We've been having reports of just normal non-foil cards that just curling randomly. It's kind of unfortunate. I do agree. Card quality is very important. I really don't want my cards to be damaged out of the pack or messed up. I want them to be, pristine, minty mint condition, obviously. And of course, I think card stock quality is another issue that is prominent. I really don't want flimsy cards. I mean, the one thing about a physical game is that it's a physical game. We're holding these cards in hand. We're playing them. We're shuffling them around. I really don't want to be playing with something that I spent hard money on. Magic is not a cheap game. I don't want to be spending my hard-earned money on something that feels cheap and flimsy in my hands, and that also leads to further cause of potential damage. Lose the value. What concerns me the most, though, is that I think this might be a problem that just Wizards doesn't care enough to tackle. I mean, obviously, this is something that the community and the consumer base can answer by talking with their wallets, not purchasing cards that they believe are to be of weaker standard, and of addressing this concern to Wizards, but that's difficult to do because I don't know about you, but people are still gonna buy cards. They're still gonna sell.
That's the deal with standard. You always got to be buying new cards. Now, my main question is that how long has this been going on? Like, how long have people been feeling that the card stock quality has been worse?
I think since Shadows, people
Really?
have been complaining that card stock has been there are a lot of been complaints about people that card stock has gotten worse. I didn't really notice it too much, but with the Amonkhet, I've been playing with Amonkhet a lot, and I can kind of feel it doesn't feel the same. Honestly, I haven't been playing for that long. I'll be honest, full disclaimer, but it definitely does feel. I can feel the cards feel flimsier. I think, which is concerning.
Fair enough. And if people want to get curled foils, they can buy from the vault. Damn it, they don't need this.
From the Fall Transform coming to a local game store near you.
Hopefully, the transform will cancel each other out because it'll be curved on one side and curved on the other, so that'll somehow make it straight. But knowing my luck, they'll curve away from each other and they'll just split the card into two.
But now you got two cards. Bonus.
Yeah.
Wizards has been pretty mum. They've been pretty quiet about this issue, so it's concerning. But also from a business side, I don't really know if they really care. Time will tell whether this continues or Wizards actually gets off their ass and does something. All right, that's the end of our combat step. We'll go on to our second main phase. Short main phase. Just wanted to do a quick tournament report. Pre-release happened this weekend. Woo woo.
Woo.
Were you able to go to pre-release, Doug?
I was not able to go to pre-release.
Ah, that's a shame. Shame. Pre-release was fun. I always enjoy my time at pre-release. Pre-releases I think you'd agree with me. Pre-release is one of the most.
Yeah, I enjoy it.
Yeah, it's a definitely fun time to play. Some cards, especially because it's a new set. There's some new cards coming up. You have to play with some cool stuff. So I drafted a pretty sweet black red with a little white splash aggressive deck. Rakdos. A lot of aggressive 2-drops, 3-drop, Nefcrop Entangler, Burning Fist Minotaur. Some nice exert triggers, first strike, on-crop crasher, Kenra Scrapper, very aggressive, strong 3-drops. And a little white splash for Resolute Survivors. The gold card is the Boros gold card that drains your opponent every single time you exert. That was powerful. Because of the white splash, I managed to splash Desert's Hold and the Dauntless Haven. I'm a big fan of Dauntless Haven. That's a very cool card. Plays really well with exert. And then I just have a really sweet removal package. 2 Torments of Venoms, a Never, some Puncturing Blows, a Struggle. Got a Bontu's Last Reckoning, which won me a game and lost me a game. So
it giveth and it taketh away.
Very questionable inclusion. And also Gideon's Defeat in the Cyber, which actually turned out to be pretty cool. I did manage to pull that out in a few games, and it was fun to blast your opponent away for 1 mana. Just a quick word on the format. This format is so fast. This has not changed. It has not changed for Amonkhet. It is a blisteringly fast format. You are going to be wanting to draft your red-green decks. I'm not saying always draft your red-green decks. Also, this is sealed, so it's the luck of the packs. But when you're drafting, red-green is definitely somewhere. Red-white, red-green is definitely something where you want to be going. Get your aggressive 2-drops, your 3-drops. Blocking is just never gonna happen. You're gonna be exerting all over the place. Afflict is the new keyword that also makes blocking hell. And I did win a game off of Afflict. Low life totals. Opponent had blockers, but it didn't matter because I swung it with my Afflict. Damage went through. I win the game anyways. So this deck ended up going 2-1. Not bad. Not too bad. Good enough to get me 2 packs. Hey. So as we move on to the end step, why don't we celebrate the imminent release of Hour of Devastation with some fresh packs of Hour. To close out the show, maybe we'll even open a masterpiece, or what do they call these? Invocations.
That'd
be nice.
They actually call them Yu-Gi-Oh cards.
Right. Let me open some Yu-Gi-Oh cards. Yugi. There's no bad cards in my grandfather's deck. This card is terrible. All right, let's do a quick first pick for this first card. Open Fire. That's a very good removal spell. 3 mana, deal 3. That's always powerful. Countervailing Winds. Sandblast. Bitterbow Sharpshooters, Wretched Camel, Harrier Naga, Manolith, Unsummoned. I might pick that over Open Fire, actually. That's very flexible. Dead of the Glorified, Scrounger Souls, Magmara, Unconventional. I love Unconventional Tactics. That card is so funny. It's the card with the zombies that are falling off the edge and they gain flying. You can pay 3 mana to instantly flying. Vision of the Anointed, and a rare is Hour of Revelation. That's expensive. Yeah. Not too bad though.
Really, you pick Unsummon over Sandblast and Open Fire?
Maybe it's questionable. Open Fire might actually just be better than Unsummon. I just really like Unsummon. I really like Unsummon. Unsummon
I like
also.
Sandblast too.
I like Sandblast too, but I think Sandblast is worse than Open Fire and Unsummon.
Really?
Yeah, because it's what 3 mana? 3 mana, yeah.
Yeah, but isn't Open Fire 3 mana as well?
Open Fire is 3 mana, but you can also hit your face. So, well, your opponent's face. Don't hit your own face with these cards, please.
No. Unless you're playing Death Shadow, which why are you running Open Fire when you could be running Bolt?
No, Open Fire is a sweet card though, because like, not Open Fire. Unsummon's a sweet card because like in this format with Exert is okay interaction. Now let's forget about Exert. With Eternalize and Embalm, there's a lot of tokens going around. Unsummon is basically 1 blue kill something. In certain situations.
Fair enough.
It's very good. All right, this next pack. Yeah, a lot of tempo. I like it for 1 blue. Next pack, I'm just gonna blitz right through it. First uncommon, we got Razaket's Right, Manticore Eternal, Dagger of the Worthy, and our rare is Neheb the Eternal. We got a mythic.
Hey,
I don't think it's playable, but interesting card. All right.
I mean, he's okay and limited.
All right. Well, thanks for joining us for the second installment of Talking Magic. I hope your packs are better than mine, and draw well.